Welcome to the Virtual Business Owners Network on Friday, the 25th of August, 2023, where our guest presenter today is Raymond Gibbons of BMS Accountants. And we're going to be talking about the use of bookkeeping apps and his tips and knowledge around that. Welcome, Raymond. Take it away.
Many thanks, Alec, and good morning, everyone. And thanks for the opportunity to make this presentation. And as Alec was saying to you there, it's about offering some advice and tips if you're contemplating doing your own bookkeeping or doing your own bookkeeping and there's various apps that are out there. So in coming up with a title, I tried to be a little bit unique, and I thought of to bookkeep or not to bookkeep. So a little bit about BMS Accountants first, if you don't mind. I founded BMS Accountants in 2009, and we currently have over 130 clients based here in Navan. Our main spread is Leinster, Munster. We've got a couple in France, and I also have a couple of clients over in Germany. So we've grown quite considerably since 2009. And what we offer is outsourced bookkeeping and payroll services. So you might be thinking, well, why would I give a presentation to business owners about doing their own bookkeeping if that's what we do? Well, we also have another string to our bow, and that is for larger companies and larger sole trader organizations who have their own in-house bookkeeper or who do their own bookkeeping, that is. We prepare their year-end accounts and their year-end tax returns. So we come across quite a lot of the issues that would be facing business owners who do their own bookkeeping. So we can offer, we hope, a little bit more advice on how to improve those systems. So very briefly, to bookkeep. Startup businesses generally look at doing their own bookkeeping because it saves them money. And that is true, but only if the quality of the work they do is good. So if they then hand over their accounts at the year end to an accountant and they hand over poor quality information, it can end up costing them a bit more money. You'd also look and say with businesses that are in existence maybe a year or so, if there's a low volume of transactions or if the transactions aren't too complex and the business owner has plenty of time on their hands, that, you know, there's no reason why they could not be doing their own bookkeeping, provided they have the ability to do it. And by that, I mean that they need to have an appreciation for what they're trying to do. It's not just about inputting data. It's about actually the end result, the final accounts, to ensure that you minimize that tax liability. Because with most business owners, that's what it's about. How did my business perform during the year? Or how is it performing? And what is my tax liability going to be like at the end of the year? So you get to a stage in your business where the volume and complexity of the transactions might mean that you don't have the skill set to actually perform the bookkeeping yourself. So it's time to look perhaps at outsourcing the bookkeeping yourself, because it's not your area of expertise. And if mistakes do arise, they can be quite costly, as you may have come across. So you're really looking here and saying, as a business owner, when is the tipping point where the quality of information I require is something that's outside my skill set and I need a more experienced bookkeeper or accountant to actually perform these tasks for me? And you've got to that stage now in your business, let's assume, and you're looking out there at the myriad of accounting apps that are out there. There's so many choices. And generally, these choices, you can break them down into two things. In my view, look at it from point of view of invoicing software or apps and bookkeeping software. So let's talk about the invoicing software and apps first, which an example of that would be Wave. And you might be using this yourself, but what I find is that the service industries that use these would be the plumbers, the bricklayers, the builders, the smaller businesses, and they're out on site. They carry out a job, they complete it, and they can instantly invoice that for that job to the customer. And that's a great way of getting paid quickly. It was Denise, our credit controller there earlier. The sooner you send out your invoice, the sooner you're going to get paid. There's an old saying, eaten bread is soon forgotten. So the longer you leave that invoice before sending it, the more likely there'll be questions about the price. The other software apps out there, they're more robust. The likes of Sage, QuickBooks, Xero, Zoho, they will give you the full suite of accounting and bookkeeping functions. They'll have all your day books, which is your purchases, your sales. They'll have your banks. They'll have your general ledger for your trial balance and for your profit and loss and your balance sheet. And they are for businesses where you find that the volume of your transactions, or again, the complexity of the transactions, requires something a little better than the invoicing apps of Wave. And then there's the hybrid version, which is the likes of BMS accountants, where we will do the bookkeeping for you, or we will take your accounts on after you've done the bookkeeping. So there's quite a variety out there. And the question for the client is, well, how do I know which one to choose? So when you're choosing your software, the first thing I would say is that, yes, you're going to talk to your accountant, and we'll come to that, but you consider your needs as a business owner. So you might be using a small invoicing app, but you're getting busier and busier, and you're finding it more difficult to stay in control of the volume of work that's coming through your books, who's paid you, the bills you owe. So you have to look at the very basic level of what you need out of this software. So the level of volume, as I've said a number of times, and the complexity of transactions, again, going back to if you're a builder or if you're working on designing a significant marketing campaign or a website design, and you might want to bill in stages. So you might need a software such as Sage, which allows you to do that. You can raise invoices and you can send them out in various stages, and you can monitor the progress of the actual work you're doing, and you can get profitability reports. Depending on your needs, the software is out there to suit. Look at how your business is now on its current life cycle and where it's going to be. So if you're investing in a let's say a less robust bookkeeping app, but in 2 to 3 years you're planning great expansion or growth, perhaps you should look at taking on board a stronger, more suitable piece of software that will grow with your business. Because in a couple of years' time, if you have to migrate from the current system you're on again to a new system, there's time, there's cost, and it's prone to errors. The software you choose should give you a much better understanding of the business that you're running. So from a sales by customer, who your top 10 customers are, profitability reports, margin and reports, a cash flow. So the software is very important. It's not just a tool for entering data. It's a tool to help you run your business. And I just put there some lists of reports that you may be familiar with, but if you're not, you should be. Age debtors, age creditors, trial balance, profit and loss, for example. So we'll come again to some of these reports later on when we're talking about the pitfalls and the type of mistakes we see as when we pick up other people's bookkeeping. But age debtors, for example, is a critical report. We were talking about that from credit control. You need to know how many customers or who your customers are and how much money they owe you and how old that debt is, because the age debtors report, the accuracy of that will help you in trying to get those slow moving payments in. I would recommend now looking at cloud-based software. We've migrated a lot of our clients onto the cloud because from your perspective, it's bookkeeping on the go. You're out on site. You're able to raise an invoice for your customer when a job is done, and they're very happy with it, and they pay you quickly, hopefully. But then from the other side, your accountant is able to log on without interrupting your day. Before we started using cloud-based accounting, if we wanted to log on, we'd have to get in touch with our clients, arrange a time when they're not on the system, and be able to go into, Teams or whatever it was, to share their screen. So, but now we use cloud-based accounting, and we're able to log on and work in the background and get a lot of the work done before the client is even aware of it. And then the backup support that you get from various software companies is critical. We partner with Sage, and I make no apology for that because their backup support is fantastic. We have a little policy here that if we have a query, if we're struggling to do something on Sage and it's taking us more than 5 or 6 minutes, if there's an issue that we've seen on software, we contact Sage straight away and let them sort it out. That's why we're paying the fees. Also, you should consider your own ability. And by this, I mean, I'm not being disrespectful. You're not bookkeepers. You're running different types of businesses. So it's not just about recording data. You have to be conscious of the information you're trying to produce at the end of it and the importance of that information, because incorrect accounts will lead to higher tax bills and higher accountancy fees. You need to be able to familiarize yourself with reconciling bank accounts, supplier accounts, and customer accounts. And all too often we find that clients will be putting through an awful lot of data, but not following it through. They're not reconciling their banks. So they're not reconciling their supplier accounts or their customer accounts. So they're not really aware of what money is due in and what money is due out. And that impacts on their cash flow, of course, because then all of a sudden they're getting surprises with demands for payment from suppliers, or they're finding that a certain client is being slow paying, but they've just taken their eye off the ball, and now they're going to try and chase that money down. The other reason for making sure that you reconcile your accounts if you're doing your own bookkeeping is to identify and correct mistakes. And I'm going to go through those in a little bit more detail later, but that is critical. And the one I'm just going to talk about now is the filing of tax returns, such as VAT and income tax. That's the area just for a moment, because if you set up your bookkeeping system incorrectly, you need to know whether, for example, you're remitting your VAT on an invoice basis or a cash receipts basis, because this will dictate when you run your VAT return through your system, this is going to dictate how much VAT is due to be paid at a given moment in time. So if you're not being inaccurate, if you're not entering your information on time, if you're not paying attention, you're going to be filing tax returns that may be incorrect, might be late, and that's going to cause more problems for you further down the road. So it's really important that you assess your ability to do your own bookkeeping. As I said, mistakes cost money, and it's higher tax bills and higher accountancy fees. So how do we get over that? Well, the first thing I would recommend is when you're looking at doing your own bookkeeping, or even if you're doing it now, don't be afraid to talk to your accountant, because they understand your business and your needs, and they will be delighted to hear from you. Because I know when clients come into me and they pick up the phone and say, Raymond, I know we hand in your bookkeeping every year, and I know that you come back to me with a list of issues that you've brought up. Can we get training for the guys, or could you sit down and talk for an hour or so, and let's iron these out now? Or what would you advise we do? We want to hear that, because it makes our life easier as well, and it means a happier customer, happier accountant, and that's what we are, a partnership. So it works really well when clients contact us first. We also recommend software that will suit them. So we would turn around and suit us, because we partner with Sage, but we use Zoho, we use Xero, and we use QuickBooks as well. And it's important that we are aware of what the client's plans are. When we can also help set up your software for you, and that's really important. And I'll talk about setting up software shortly, but the key thing is engage with your accountant, because you need to understand what it is they're going to look for from you at the financial year end. Because when you're doing your own bookkeeping, I'll be looking for what I call a sanitized trial balance, and that is that the trial balance has been reconciled. Because if you're doing your own bookkeeping, that's what we're going to expect from you, because if we were doing it, that's what you would expect from us. So you've spoken to your accountant, you've looked at your needs, and you've assessed your own ability, and you've made a decision. You're choosing a particular software. Again, I've mentioned it, engage with your accountant. And ask them to set this up for you. There will be a fee involved, but it'll be a fee well spent, because it's going to get you straight from the get-go. The critical thing here, and Alec mentioned it in the past, is about entering opening balances. And opening balances come from your balance sheet from the prior year. And they are fundamentally, your balance sheet is a growing beast of a financial statement. And what is in there is your bank balance, your age, the total amount of creditors that you need to pay, the total amount of debtors that are due to you, loan balances, and also in fixed assets, you might have equipment that's been written off over a number of years. So you need to get these opening balances, and you need to have them entered at the beginning of your financial year end, beginning of your financial year, when you're setting up a new account system. Using correct nominal coding is really important. And that's all about, and this is not that complicated, but it's all about setting up your new software correctly. So what's a nominal ledger code? A nominal ledger code is a home for a cost. Think of light and heat, accountancy fees, marketing fees. When you're entering an invoice onto Alec Drew for services he's rendered to you, you want that invoice being posted automatically over to the correct nominal ledger code, be it marketing, consultancy, whatever the case may be. There are other apps out there, such as Dext, which is a very useful app, which means you can scan in or you can photograph receipts. And again, provided you set it up correctly, it will then, the likes of Sage, will upload that receipt and post it automatically to the nominal ledger and to the correct supplier code for you. But the critical thing here is in the setup. If it's not set up correctly, these receipts will be posted. And I've just come across one the other day where a gentleman who would be very good in business has been posting all of his purchase invoices, and they were all hitting the sales nominal ledger code. So these mistakes do happen, and we have to try to pick those up. Now, that's an obvious one, but it's obvious to us. But obviously, it wasn't obvious to the client, who was wondering why he was making so little money and why his sales were so low. So, but we've resolved that issue for him. Spend time to get to know and understand your software. Most software comes with small video tutorials. So what I would recommend is if you set up a new software today, and today your new task is to post purchase invoices, just watch the video tutorials on purchase invoices today and post them. Don't bombard yourself with all the various learning tools. Set aside another day where you say, I'm going to work on my sales and I'm going to look at the tutorials on sales or bank reconciliations, and do it piecemeal. And you will learn the tricks of operating your software, and you become very au fait with how it operates. Simplify the processes. Don't overcomplicate it. You know, the systems and the software there are designed to make your life easier. We tend to make it a little bit more complicated because we think it shouldn't be that easy. It should be a little bit more difficult to use this software, shouldn't it? Well, the truth is no, they're designed to be user friendly. The common mistakes that we come across are flying solo at the very beginning and not getting your accountant's input. So we've spoken enough about that. So all I'd say is engage with your accountant. The other mistakes that we come across are mispostings of transactions. And I mentioned about the purchase invoices being posted to sales. It's quite common. Another one is, for example, where we would look and say that, are you familiar with the type of costs that are going through your business, and do you understand the differences in them? So, for example, if you're buying a piece of equipment today for 3,000 or 4,000 euros, we'd see many clients write that off to repairs because they want to write that off in the year they purchased it. Well, you might want to do that, but you can't do that because it's a fixed asset. And it has to be written off over 8 years, 12.5% of the capital allowances that you're entitled to use. Now, you might write it off quicker in your accounts, that's fine, but it has to be adjusted back to make sure that you pay the correct income tax. And these are the things your accountant will do for you if you're not familiar with them. But the important thing is to understand the types of costs and movements that are going through your accounts so that you can actually post correctly. Incomplete postings is something that when I mentioned this to you, you probably think that doesn't happen, but it happens quite often. We would have come across people who do their own bookkeeping. And so I'm away there and I'm posting away my bank statements in May, and I've got to the 15th of May because I don't want to actually automatically allow Sage to download the bank transactions. I like to do it manually. And they're posting away and you get to the 15th of May and the phone rings and Alex on the phone or Chris is on the phone and you get distracted. And you go off and do a job and you forget about your bank transactions. And the next thing you come back and you pick up your statements for the 1st of June and you start posting away. And because you're never reconciling your banks, you don't realize you've missed 16 days of May in your bank account. And it's not till 7 months later when you hand your accounts over to your accountant and your accountant goes, your bank's way out. It doesn't reconcile. Of course, my bank reconciles. And you show them that they've missed maybe 4 or 5 weeks or a month and a half of transactions. And it does happen. And that's because it's not your area of expertise. And that's fine. But how can you mitigate those mistakes? Well, you mitigate those mistakes by making sure you reconcile your bank on a monthly basis, reconcile your supplier accounts, reconcile your customer accounts. Because other big mistakes are you would have Raymond Gibbons and John Gibbons, let's say. And Raymond Gibbons has paid you today, but you've posted that receipt to John Gibbons. And so John Gibbons now owes you nothing. And Raymond Gibbons is actually looking and still owing you money, and you're chasing me down for payment. And I say, well, I've already paid you, but you're not familiar with the mistakes that are with identifying these errors in your system. And you're adamant I haven't paid you. Other ones is we see aged debtors. We mentioned those. If you know what an aged debtors list is, it's a list of customers who owe you money at a given point in time. But more often we get in aged debtors from people doing their own bookkeeping, and it looks like the client actually owes their customer money because they've misposted receipts coming from somebody else onto another account. And they are not reconciled. And these are quite common mistakes. And it all comes back down to the point that they're not reconciling their bank accounts, not reconciling their supplier accounts or their customer accounts, and they're not identifying the errors that are going through their work. So it's really important that you take time to understand how your software works and that you follow it through and do it correctly. And it'll reduce your accountancy fees, but it'll also make sure that your tax bill is correct at the end of the day. The filing of late and incorrect VAT returns, we tipped on that. And the issue here is, again, it's not so much anything other than we're busy doing other jobs, and your job might be marketing, your job might be website design, whatever it is. And you come to the end of a VAT period and you start rushing to get the work done, and you start posting and you're not posting all of the paperwork because you haven't had time to chase it down, and you might end up paying too much VAT. So the way around that is to make sure that you stay on top of your paperwork on a regular basis. Automate as much as you can, but make sure it's done correctly. If I could offer any real tips for maintaining your own bookkeeping and for keeping it up to date, is to keep it up to date on a regular basis. So get yourself files, basic files, whether they're in you're saving them online or paper files, because still paper is still. I know we've got 100 and odd boxes of paperwork downstairs. We're trying to get rid. We're trying to give back to clients. Keep your records up to date on a regular basis. Set aside time on a Friday or whatever, or a Monday first thing to do it. The use of correct nominal ledger codes is critical for accuracy. And that really is important to you to get the trends in your business, to see where costs are increasing, or, and helps you manage costs. It'll also help you manage your sales targets and setting budgets for the fall next year. Post banks on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and reconcile your banks and suppliers, and do that monthly. If not, if you can do it more often, do it more often. Don't take shortcuts. And by that, I mean, when you're setting up your customer and supplier accounts, put in their full information. Make sure the VAT rates are set up correctly on the supplier accounts. We had a client that had a number of stores, and you would have thought with the brand, with modern technology and the till system, that once you update one till system or the till system online, you update all the tills at the branches. But that didn't happen. So when the VAT rate changed from 13.5% to 9%, one of his branches was still recording all of the sales at 13.5% when they should have been 9%. So he was paying too much VAT. And the problem was that he was doing a lot of his own bookkeeping. And when we were reconciling the year-end accounts, we came across this error, and we were able to get the VAT back. But the point still stands that his fee was a bit higher than he expected, because we picked up this error. Now, why didn't he pick it up? Because nobody was checking and identifying and reviewing the work that was being done on a regular basis. So we've done something now, and this is why it's in here. We do it with a lot of clients, and he was the latest one we've done it with. We have agreed a service fee with our client, and we go on a monthly basis and review the work that they're doing at their end. So we're identifying the mistakes earlier, or we're raising questions to them and prompting a response from them. Say, well, do you know that in this branch, you've got 60% of your sales are at 13.5%, but in your other branches, it's actually 80% of your sales are at 13.5%. Why is there such a discrepancy there? That's what you want from your accountant, someone who's actually going to be looking in the background. So if you're doing your own bookkeeping, agree a service fee with your accountant to review your work on an ongoing basis. It'll save you a lot of money and a lot of heartache. Just a few final tips. And it was interesting with what our conversation was earlier this morning. When you're dealing with customers and debtors, if you have an invoice app, issue that invoice immediately. It's much easier to get paid. If you hang around and you extend that invoice 24 hours, a week later, whatever it is, the satisfaction that your customer might have got from the job you gave or you did may have fallen a little, and they may be cribbing about the price that you're charging, and they'll be slower paying. So get those invoices out straight away. Set credit terms and stick to them. And don't be shy about that. Don't be shy about chasing down overdue accounts. Have a credit control policy in place to make sure that when you issue out the invoice, if little things, send out your statements a week before the payment is due, so that you're more inclined to get paid on time. If the payment is late, have a little system that you say, well, and your software will do this for you. I'm going to issue statements. I'm going to issue my letters, and you issue through the software so that you have a paper, an audit trail, if you like. And if it does come where you have to chase that payment down through the courts, as where you've got a full list of steps that you've taken to try and recover that debt. Again, I mentioned simplifying the processes. Don't overcomplicate what you're doing. Talk to your accountant and get them to set it up for you, because at the end of the day, what are you after as a business owner? You're after a set of accounts that are accurate and will enable you to assess performance and will help you minimize your tax liability. Because fundamentally, that's what it is for most SME owners. How well have I done throughout the year, and what's my tax bill? And any tool you're using is only to help you run your business. Now, I'm not sure, I hope that gave you some sort of help and advice. And again, thanks for the opportunity, Alec. And any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Raymond, for a very comprehensive overview of a topic that I think so many people should engage in much more. And I think a lot of people miss, like I'm one of these people who loves this sort of software stuff. Most people hate bookkeeping, and so therefore it ends up being wrong. And I think the whole area, get an accountant to set it up. If you're going to do it yourself, get it set up. And there's simple things that come about. So for example, you might have 6 or 7 services you provide. And it's nice to be able to break them down under nominal code so you can see which ones are profitable and which ones are not. And equally, I think, Raymond, it's fair to say that you can also group expenses. Take motoring expenses can be all grouped, whereas if you set them up wrong, they're all over the place and you're trying to find them.
It's one of the things, Alec, that if you have a chart of accounts with 2,000 nominal ledgers in it, a client will want 2002. So when we set up now a chart of accounts, we would say we would actually say here no more than 30. And that's including if they want to analyze that by branch and things like that, you know. So we have a set chart of accounts that when we're setting it up, we use, because and it covers all the bases, as you say, and the client's more than happy with it. And if we know their business, which we would do, if there was a particularly unique cost or a unique transaction that goes through their business, well, we'd flag that for them on their chart of accounts. But certainly, you know, people like detail, don't they? But they don't really use it.
No, that's fine. That's great. I'm going to put in the one-to-ones in the chat box just while people are asking Raymond any questions. Then we go into the breakout rooms. If anybody's any questions for Raymond, but again, thank you very much, Raymond, for a very comprehensive presentation. Yes, Sean.
Yeah, it's a question I get asked a lot, actually. I ask for recommendations for an accountant. You know, if you've a group of accountants and they can all tell a great story, what's the best way of knowing you have a really good accountant? Is that a tough question?
It's not really. I don't believe it. I don't believe it is. Like, one of the things that we would do here is we build relationships with our clients. We provide a service, but we partner with our clients. And I think that's really important, that I have a team of 5 here, and they're all account managers. So they have, we split up the clients, 130 or so clients, and they each manage the clients for a set period of time only, and then they transfer. So I'm surrounded. I have to say the gender balance in my place is very against me. It's they're all ladies that I have working for me, and so if June, Pam, Jem, or Lorraine, they have 40 accounts, it'll be moved on to somebody after 6-7 months, so that somebody else, they'll just swap them around. So a new fresh pair of eyes will review the business for the client. But when I said to you about the service charge, it's service agreement with our clients, particularly those that do their own bookkeeping, Sean, this is important. You want an accountant who's going to take an interest in your business. Now, we're doing it for 2 reasons. Firstly, because if we can review accounts on a regular basis, it means our workload is more manageable, and that's the simple truth of it. But secondly, we know that we're going to keep our clients happy. We're providing a service where we're identifying potential issues within their business. We're engaged with them. We're talking to them about their business, about performance, what they're looking to do, what their plans are. So really, it's about engagement, and it's about building partnerships. And yes, it's a business partnership, but you kind of do build a real rapport with your clients, and I don't think we've lost that. And I wouldn't like to lose it.
Those customers and girls didn't know.
Say again.
Sorry, it's okay, Raymond.
No. So I would say, to me, that's what it's about. If you can find an accountant who will be at the end of a phone for you, you know, we have an open door policy here. Yeah, and we do, and it does work. We would have knocks on the door. They can see any of the staff who are free, and if they want to see me and I'm free, I will try and make time for them. Yes, for other meetings, we have to manage our diaries. So it's not a free for all. But if a client is passing and there is something on their mind, they can knock in, and they do.
Just one final question.